Did we, I've just drawn a blank. Did we get into verse 19, 18, where we at? Roy's using
Still in 16.
16, good grief. We got a long way to go.
Yeah, he's still in 16.
Okay. Daniel chapter 7, verse 16. Everybody have a good week, I guess. Haley, you're awful quiet over there. I've only heard you 3 or 4 times. Huh?
It's cold.
Cold.
Are you cold or cold?
She's cold.
Cold.
Move class outside, it feels better.
We ought to go outside and have our class sometime. Wouldn't that be fun? Probably look rather foolish people.
Yeah, as long as it's warm.
All right, Daniel chapter 7, verse 16. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation of the things. I think last week we talked about the possibilities of who one of them was. I do want to mention before we leave verse 16 that it is not uncommon in the Old Testament with those who have visions or scenes from heaven to conversate. I did not aim to, that was not even connected, but what a wonderful segue by yours truly. But it's not uncommon for conversation to be had between the one who has the vision and someone in the vision, or one who gives the vision. You see this in Ezekiel's vision of the temple in Ezekiel chapters 40 through 48, and Zechariah in Zechariah chapters 1 through 6. So before we leave verse 16, I thought this was interesting. But notice it says, so he told me and made me know the interpretation. So beginning verse 17, here is the interpretation. These great beasts, which are four kings, which shall arise out of the earth. Now, in verses 17 and 18, there is, for lack of a better word, a general interpretation. Not anything specific as far as the time frame, just really a general interpretation. The 4 beasts are identified as 4 kings, which we obviously, if you have a king, you have to have a kingdom. So we'll just say the 4 kings represent 4 kingdoms. And then notice it says, which arise out of the earth. Now, if you go back to verse 3, it says, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. So there, sea is used in the vision now as the explanation is given. And in verse 17, you see the earth, but in the scripture, it's not uncommon either for the earth and the seas to be used in a relationship one to another. So the 4 kings, the 4 kingdoms shall arise out of the earth. Again, just general interpretation, general information being given to Daniel. Verse 18, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. So the word saints is used, and there's sometimes this is referenced as being seen to be converted Jews who will be saved toward the end time. This also may be saved, or different interpretations of of what that means. Again, this is just a general interpretation, but the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom. Now, the Most High obviously is referencing God. God is an interesting term, title given to God, and it probably pertains to the fact that the Most High signifies God in His majesty and His glory. His majesty and His glory. Now the Scripture says that they shall take the kingdom, but that doesn't mean that they in themselves shall take the kingdom as much as it means that they are given the kingdom. And they are given the kingdom from back in verse 14, when there was given from the Most High to the Son of Man, to Christ, dominion, glory, and a kingdom. So this is basically given from the Most High, but obviously it relates to the Son of Man and possession of the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Again, verses 17 and 8 are a general interpretation as the one who is speaking to Daniel, whoever it may be, is given him. But in verse 19, you see something that is interesting in this sense, that Daniel presses. It is not in verse 19, and I'm going to use this expression, it's probably not good, but it seems like Daniel's really not satisfied with just a general interpretation. So he kind of presses, if you will, the issue. Then I would know the truth of the fourth beast, which was diverse from all the others, exceeding dreadful, whose teeth were of iron, and his nails of brass, which devoured, break in pieces, and stamp the residue with his feet. Now I'm going to stop there, though Daniel's wording to us continues. But observe two things about verse 19. Number one, Daniel is pressing the issue of wanting to know more than just the general information that this one gave him, verses 17 and 18. The second thing is that as it relates to Daniel's interest, Daniel is really interested in this fourth beast. Daniel's really interested in this fourth beast. The fourth beast has been in the original vision of it, has been, I'm going to use the word captivating to Daniel. And now Daniel wants to know specifically more about this fourth beast. Observe in verse 19 how descriptive Daniel is about this fourth beast. There are just some things about the fourth beast that are captivating to Daniel. So he wants to make sure of the meaning of the fourth beast. Very descriptive. He says he is diverse from the other three that have been mentioned. He is exceeding dreadful, which speaks about the great fear that this fourth beast instills to one who is seeing the fourth beast. His teeth are of iron, but then notice his nails of brass. Now, this is interesting because this detail, nails of brass or claws of brass, are not mentioned. It's not mentioned in the original vision. So this speaks about the ability of this fourth beast to tear into pieces. It is more an additional term or description that signifies the ability of this fourth beast to tear into pieces. Notice, he devours, he breaks in pieces, and he stamps the residue with his feet. It almost shows this power of the fourth beast to just pretty well totally destroy anything that it has a mind to destroy. So, keep that in mind. Now let's finish the sentence in verse 20. And of the 10 horns which were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. So now we're going back to the little horn that arises out of the other horns. And now in verse 20, it seems to me that Daniel has obviously been captivated by this fourth beast. But there is something, as Daniel has seen this vision, that is really particular about this little horn. And as we know, I say as we know, as I think, I should not put any, because so much of this is a matter of interpretation, but the little horn seems to be the Antichrist. There's something about this little horn that has grown up that from the others that is really captivating Daniel as he's seen him, because now he's very descriptive about this little horn. And in verse 20, it seems that the little horn is presented as being a very haughty, very prideful, and has a great swagger about him, not only in his appearance, but also in how he talks. Of course, if you look at the other prophecies as they relate to the Antichrist, he is going to be very persuasive. And as we progress to this time, if the word progress is a good word, but as we progress or digress to this time, the Antichrist, when he arises, and when I say he arises, what I mean by that is becomes more and more manifested as to who he is. You know, I remember back in the when I first started preaching, there was debate back then if the Antichrist was alive at that time. And, of course, if he was, he'd be an old dude now. But you know, he may very well be, very possibly is alive now. He has just not manifested himself to the degree that he will. I'm not saying he is, I'm just saying that it could be. But he has not manifested himself, if he is, as yet as he will. And you're seeing a climate of preparation where more and more people are setting themselves up, and I'm using that word as personal responsibility because it is, by no appreciation or little appreciation of God, religion, things that might help people preserve themselves from falling under the sway. Those things are lessening. Those things are falling by the wayside. So when he does arrive, when he does manifest himself, he's going to be very prideful, very self-confident, and he's going to be able to back up what he says. for a while. But you see, here Daniel says in verse 20 that he had a mouth that spake great things. Now you go back to verse 8. When he talks about this little horn, notice the last part of verse 8. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man. Okay? And he says, a mouth speaking great things. That's how he was described in the vision. Now, in verse 20, a mouth that spake very great things. So here it's a little more emphasized about the great things that he says. And then he says, whose look was more stout than his fellows. In other words, he had a very prideful look, but he has the appearance to the beholder, Not only does, he feel this way about himself, but he's going to have a look to the beholder that this guy is head and shoulders, as he rises up, he kind of is. But this guy's going to appear to be head and shoulders above all the others, okay? And this is in part why the Antichrist will have such a great power, is because he's going to look that way to people. He's going to say those things. We often say that as the world gets in crises, the Antichrist is going to come along and he's going to seemingly have the answers. You know, so if he's going to have the answers, if he's going to know how to have the peace, which of course he won't, but it will appear to them, people will have to buy into it. So this guy's going to have some means about him that he's going to make people think that he can solve all problems. So there's going to be some problems that have to be solved at that time.
I have a question that this may show my ignorance on the subject of the end times, or maybe I forgot. When you said that people used to ask if the Antichrist was lying, is the Antichrist a person, or is it Satan, or one of his devils?
I think the answer to that is kind of yes.
because
I mean, he's going to be, I think he's going to be a person, but he's going to be, I mean, Satan's going to be using them and going to be very instrumental. I mean, he's going to be of Satan. So it's kind of hard, in my view, to really answer that other than saying yes to all of those. He's going to have power from Satan that no one else has ever had. And the thing is, we have to remember is God's going to, I don't know if this is good terminology, but God's going to kind of pull back and let him have some reign, let Satan have reign. And maybe that's not a good word, but he's going to let him have reign, unlike anything we've seen Satan be able to do in our lifetime. So I'd say yes to everything.
it's interesting because I looked up just on Concord, and I always think of Antichrist as being something you hear a lot in Revelation, but it's not even mentioned in Revelation. It's only mentioned 5 times in the Bible. And 4 of them are in 1st and 2nd John.
Yeah.
And in 1 John 2:18,
Right.
it talks about how even now are there many Antichrists, whereby we know that it's the last time. And he said that back when he wrote 1 John.
Yeah. Well, now, isn't there, I'm asking y'all, not because, but I think there's someplace about the spirit of Antichrist, or am I just dreaming that? Is it referenced in the scripture?
John talks about the fact that in one of the epistles that there are many antichrists among you, right?
Yeah, but what I'm asking is there terminology that says the spirit of Antichrist?
Yes, in 1 John 4:3, it says that.
Because if it's what I'm thinking about, I want to pursue that.
It says, and every spirit that confesseth not that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof ye have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world.
Okay, now, I don't want to get off on this, and this problem with going through the book of Daniel is you can stop and spend time, and we don't really need to. But I will say the spirit of Antichrist has been here. So what I'm leading to, and people that are antichrist are out there. But what I'm getting at is I think what's going to happen in this guy is you're going to see the spirit of Antichrist, the denying of Antichrist, to be that which just really, really grows and prospers and is manifested in this one guy. And let it be said. Let it be said, because I know this is a term, but let's think about this thing. Antichrist is just that. Antichrist. Is he anti-God? Yes. But in relationship to the truth of God as it relates through Christ. It is not, and I know what I'm saying is goofy to say, but it's not that he's anti-God. He's going to say he's God, okay? But it's not, we need to understand it's not so much an anti-God as it is anti-Christ. And somebody says, well, what's the difference? Well, to us, there's no difference. But this thing may, and I got my prophecy degree at Walmart and Clear Freight. So, but this thing may not initially be so much an anti-God thing as it is anti-Christ, because it is relational to the issue of Christ. And we can't forget that, because one of the things he's going to do is he's going to purport to be God and the Messiah in himself. And if people are not acquainted experimentally with the issue of Christ, they may very much, and probably will, get sucked up into this thing. So I just think the reason he's called the Antichrist, and this kind of what you referenced in the book of John. John was teaching us some things about, if you don't believe that Christ has come in the flesh, you're basically Antichrist.
Could that have been a backwards jab at the Jews, because they didn't believe in Christ? They believed in God very strongly, but they didn't believe in Christ.
I don't know that I'd say yes, but I don't know if I'd say backward jab. But yeah, I mean, but anyone, but yes to the Jews. I mean, definitely, because they rejected Christ. But the world is being prepared for the Antichrist, if nothing else. And I know this is, and I don't mean small as in insignificant. This is just one of many. But the world is being prepared for the Antichrist with the atmosphere being removed, the issue of Christ being removed from the atmosphere. It is being prepared for this individual's rise, because people won't have any sense of the truth of Christ. And so, and I think what John was saying was, this is going on now.